Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Charlie Ortiz, who serves as the founder and executive director of the WHIN Music Community Charter School. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Aaron, it is great to see you again. Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
so it is so great. I have had the opportunity and honor to be able to see and know the work that you have done for so many years at WIN, and just stands not only obviously for the community, but stands up nationally, and is truly, truly extraordinary. And I think just before, because I'd love to talk a lot about partnerships because I know Win does a really phenomenal job with that. But just wondering for just our audience, anyone who may not be familiar with Win, you kind of just the quick kind of overview of Win and the scope of the school itself.
So WIN is a public charter school that is founded on the principles of El Sistema, where every single child has 2 periods of ensemble-based music every day, in addition to a rigorous academic curriculum in ELA, math, science, social studies, all the physical education, all the things. And I say ensemble-based because in the El Sistema tradition, we really try to empower our children to not only be great musicians, but also to be problem solvers for whatever they or their community is facing. And so we found that in the choir and the orchestra are great ways to teach them those technical music skills, but also those more transferable skills about how to show up for you, your ensemble, and your community.
It is truly just, an extraordinary format. And obviously, the students, you can see how they're able to respond to it. And so, with that, I'd love to kind of delve into partnerships. And first, just kind of, I'm curious. So many of those who are watching are at their various respective institutions. And a lot of times, there's discussions about how do we approach partnerships. How should we look at them? We find some work or some don't work, etc. Some might feel like they're facing some challenges with it. So curious, kind of just first, is there kind of an ethos or any kind of core criteria that you have just as you think about partnerships as you approach them?
So that's a fantastic question. And for WIN, now in our ninth year of operations, over a decade since we were approved by the state of New York, I feel like we're now at full scale and we have the opportunity to be more thoughtful. And so it feels like a really great spot to be. And the amount of folks that we're connected to now, who believe in what we're doing is just very humbling. And I'm so grateful for all the friends and partners that we have. I would say like the first thing that if I could tell me 9 years ago, um, it would be to go slowly. I've come to accept that going slowly allows you to go quickly, and part of that going slowly, I think, is exactly the main criteria, which is about being values aligned, values and mission aligned. And I think that when you go slowly with meeting folk, meeting organizations, um, and just the people who are moving the work forward every single day, you start to really get a handle on like, are our core values really aligned? And if so, then it becomes, I think, a really fun and creative process for like, so what can we do? How can we do it? And through that process, I think great work happens. And I've been fortunate enough to have that with a few of our partners. So I would say going slowly, and as a first kind of pass through, making sure that there's deep value alignment.
Absolutely love that. And as you're kind of doing that as well, and in a second I'll get to are there any kind of specific partnerships to point to, but in this, I know that some organizations look and struggle when they try to partner, reflecting size. So, in other words, organizations that are looking and are exploring a partnership with a much larger organization, which has a much bigger budget, et cetera. Sometimes they experience challenges, or some organizations that are exploring partnerships with sometimes a smaller organization with a much smaller budget also encounter challenges, but in a different way. Wondering if either kind of that has occurred for you, and or do you have any kind of aspects of your approach relating to either size differential at all?
So, there's definitely been one of our partners. I would say one of our longest or a very close partner, which is Juilliard, and so we first met the folks in the pre-college department, I want to say 8, 9 years ago. And we just started to talk about music and education and life and classical music and all that stuff. And slowly over time, we experimented with this thing. We experimented with like a buddy partnership for some of the MAP students at Juilliard's pre-college program and some of our students. We worked together on like doing a shared, what ultimately became a video project for different kids here and at Juilliard. And with each one of these slow iterations of trying to answer what can we do together, conversations flowed about creating a partnership that would allow WHIN students to have private lessons during the school day from Juilliard pre-college staff, Juilliard MAP staff. And so for me, like the size difference is pretty big between Juilliard and WHIN. And uh, and so for me, the point is that if you take your time and really develop these relationships, then the work unfolds itself, as opposed to what I think I would have done, years ago, is to try and like say, oh, it has to be this or it should be this, and try and force it to that. When there's value alignment, I think it allows for folks to play in the sandbox, if you will, and really have creative ideas about what it can be. Another example, ACO, the American Composers Orchestra, like they're in our school doing a composers program, and that literally came just from like, I think it actually started at one of the Sphinx conferences, where we first connected with them and said, hey, we want to build out more composing stuff for our students. What could that look like? And a couple years later, we're in now our second year of a program with them. And so for me, I think it's about just working with people and kind of accepting that some are bigger, some are smaller, but if there's shared alignment and shared values, then all it takes is time and care, and you'll figure something out.
That's absolutely awesome and such great examples. And Sphinx has also had the honor of being able to partner with you,
Yeah.
and even beyond things relating to the conference and all of that, but also especially related to the Carnegie performances in New York.
That's a great example, right? And so, I mean, Sphinx has been a great partner since I think the very beginning. And what you're doing, think about size difference, right? Think about what you're doing across the nation, if not across the globe, to really engender a future for classical music that has a spot for everyone. Um, we have been trying to really get our families and our kids normalized to the classical music experience. And in case any listeners don't know, we run a kindergarten through eighth grade program. So some of our students are very young. And and so being able to have those opportunities to take a lot of our families and our students and our staff even to participate in concerts that you do in New York, literally has changed how children experience the instrument and has made them practice more, has made them show up in classes better. It has impacted their families to understand that like, oh, like this thing that's in their hand that they're practicing every night has a future, and it's something that they can do. And opportunities that you provide and so many others really help us and our families know that.
It's absolutely awesome. And so just kind of with partnerships, and now that you've had, such a range of them and been able to look at them, any kind of red flags or things that you would share with those who are watching as they're exploring partnerships? If you see this or you're feeling this as you're exploring a partnership, maybe a red flag or something to look at. In other words, to not always just engage in a partnership, but Any kind of things you can share on that front?
Um, so it's interesting. Red flags for potential partners. Um, I generally believe that with dialogue and a shared commitment and a shared purpose, most things you can work through. Um, and I've been fortunate enough to know a lot of folk that are willing to work through stuff. Um, and so I would say a red flag is if somebody seems like they're not willing to work through a challenge because the work is hard and all of us want the best. And so if we're willing to work through the hard challenges, I think we're going to get them. And then I would actually say, if I may, a red flag that I would give on my side of the table in partnerships, right? Because it's always mutual. Um, uh, red flag that I've started to look for in myself is that um, I've tried to get to the finish line without really making a space for everyone's voice and everyone's perspective. And I think that as we've grown, I've just really come to see the value of making a space and a place for everyone's voice to come in to help shape that final outcome or like what that partnership could be. Um, and so I would say, it works on both sides of the table, and how you navigate the challenges is probably the most important thing to success.
Awesome, awesome. So, unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all of my guests, and because there's so many who are in administrative leadership positions who watch the show, when the circumstances might come up where it just seems like everything right is caving in, or it's going to be the toughest of days, a challenge you can't potentially overcome as a leader and as an arts administrative leader, do you have any mechanism, something that you go to that helps you get through those toughest of times?
Um, you've asked that before, and it's such a deep question. What I feel like I've said in the past is like the people that are around me, and I stand by that to this day. But as far as mechanisms and whatnot, I've been listening to a lot. Okay, and I'm a jazz guy. I've been listening to a lot more jazz than I have in years, and really finding solace in just being a musician and like I don't want to say separating from the admin work, but like reconnecting with like the other part, like the actual music making part of what all of us in this space do. And so I've been trying to force myself in times where I'm a little bit more um, anxious or stressed to kind of go back to the guitar and go back to John Coltrane. So guitar and John Coltrane is my answer this time.
Absolutely love that. Charlie Ortiz, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for being on the show.
Aaron, always a pleasure, and I'll see you in Detroit soon.